I know firsthand that obedience isn't always glamorous. It cost me comfort, control, and certainty because I went through a lot of trials from being obedient. The warfare was real from being obedient, but it also gave me clarity, it gave me purpose, and a front row seat to God's faithfulness. I realized then and there that God was asking me for complete submission and complete sacrifice. And I said yes. Remember, obedience is the new success, and your story is proof. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Called and Courageous. I am super excited for you guys to be here, and I'm very excited to introduce our guest coming from all the way from Thailand. He's based out in Thailand, so this is super exciting. He is a creator. He is an author. He is also a trauma recovery coach. I just want you guys all to welcome Richard Tierney. Hi, Richard.
Thank you very much for having me. I got to tell you, lads, I love these podcasts. I love get a chance to speak to people that would never know me, connect with, and it's really. I've been talking to my wife and my children. I'm going to start my own podcast. I'm planning on doing a podcast, and it'll be Christian focused, and I just love it. I love this. It's a wonderful. So thank you all for having me and being here to listen to me today.
Of course. Richard, why don't you share with everybody what you do on a daily basis, what organizations you have started or work in, so that everyone knows?
I'm a trauma recovery coach. How can I start this? In the world today, there are 1 billion people who've been diagnosed with mental disorders. And it's a terrible shame. And there's 290 million children between the age of 10 and 19 who've been diagnosed with mental disorders. The future of the human race. It's like a crime against humanity and a sin against God that children have been taught that their feelings and emotions are mental disorders, when in fact they're God's given instincts. And I think the fact that they've taken the Bible out of schools and out of homes, it has ruined or kind of damaged the raising of our children. Children don't realize that their instincts, their feelings and emotions are their instincts. That God has given them instincts to protect them. That if they feel anxious, they're meant to run away or fight, flight, or freeze. They're meant to run away or hide or take some action, and they'll be safe. That they are their instincts given to them by God. Every animal on this planet has these instincts. You look at movies of deers being chased by cheetahs, and the deers knows to fight, flight, or freeze. If they stand around, they're going to be eaten, so they know they have to fight, flight, or freeze. It's in every walk of life. So I wanted to reach children. So I wrote a book called How to Live Stress and Anxiety Free 24 Hours a Day. And I wrote it like I'm speaking to children, very, very simple English, to let children to understand that their feelings and emotions are their God-given instincts, to trust them in every situation. They're not mental disorders. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to freeze. It's okay to disassociate. It's okay to be an introvert. It's okay to be socially anxious. These are your God-given responses. You know that. So that's what my main program is around children. And my trauma recovery coach title, I'm a member of a 12-step program. It helped me to find Jesus, to be quite honest. I was raised a Roman Catholic and disillusioned with the Roman Catholic faith. I was a lapsed Christian for some 30 years of my life. And in that time, I'd suffered a trauma as a child. And I escaped into addiction and self-harm. And I tried to take my life 3 times. And this kind of crazy, terrible doom and despair. And then I was introduced to a 12-step program. And that kind of saved me. And it taught me about I'm the problem. I have to change my attitude, outlook, perspective. I'm never truly alone. There's higher powers on this earth, and then there's God who can be in your life and who can give you peace of mind for 5 minutes. And I had to learn about prayer and meditation and reflection, and to understand that I learned lovely little gifts from an elderly minister, Protestant minister, who taught me all about Jesus and Christ. Beautiful stuff, and I'm going to share that with you during the podcast. But things that just blew me away that I never knew about, that really transformed my life. So that's where I was. So I created the 12-step program myself for trauma, called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. And there's never been a 12-step program for trauma. There's been 10 steps and 9 steps and 5 steps. And there's the idea of taking out alcohol out of the 12 steps and replacing it with trauma, but it doesn't work because it's a different type. So I created the 12-step program, and I contacted AA World Service in New York, and I presented my 12-step program to them. And I was told it would take 2 or 3 months for them to decide whether it was worthy of becoming the 14th 12-step program in the world. And 3 days later, they contacted me and say, we're approving it. So now there's a 12-step program called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. So I think if I give nothing else to the world, but I gave this 12-step program, I could go and meet my father very happily that I gave something to the world.
Amen.
So that's my claim to fame. I've created a 12-step program to help people break free of past trauma memories.
How did you know when I know you mentioned that you experienced trauma at a young age, and it was through the 12 steps that you were able to find God, but can you explain, how did you know that this is where you were called to? Like, you knew that this is what you were meant to do?
I've never been asked that question. That's a fantastic question. Wow, you've thrown me now. You've really thrown me. You've caught me. Okay, so the best I can explain is after my third suicide attempt. In that moment, I realized I wanted to live. I realized I didn't want to die. It wasn't that I wanted to die; I just didn't want to live. But in that moment, everything changed, and I wanted to live. I wasn't a Christian at that stage. I was still a lapsed Christian. And I was in Bali, and I'd run away from myself. I'd left home in Ireland to do a geographical. And my plan was to come out to Asia and die somewhere out in the jungle, and no one would know, and it'd be all over, and whatever, blah blah. And that was like 20 years ago. And about 15 years ago, I have this third attempt in Bali, and I realized in the middle of it, just when it's basically, I'm going to stop. I realize I want to live, and I do everything in my power to get to shore. And I finally get back into shore, and I go to my hotel room, and I pack up my bags, and I get out of Bali, and I go to Thailand, where there's 12-step recovery, and there's some churches. And I just come into 12-step recovery first. Now, there was churches, but I wasn't really aiming for a church. I was just trying to get somewhere where I could start working on myself. So I came into Chiang Mai in Thailand, and I got involved in a group here, and it was really wonderful because back then they were all like ex-Korean and Vietnam vets from America who'd come back out who'd never settled back in America. They never got comfortable living in America again. They came back out to Asia, and they weren't allowed to go back to Vietnam or Korea, so they wanted to do service in Asia as a way of paying back for their part in the conflict. So they base themselves in Chiang Mai, and they do all these work with hill tribes, and really fabulous work, and I got involved in that, and that was a really wonderful blessing, and it gave me an idea of doing service, and that led me to meeting people who were Christians, and slowly it kind of got to me. But at one stage, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, and he was my AA sponsor. He gave me a book by Emmett Fox called Sermon on the Mount. I'd never heard of Emmett Fox. I'd never read Sermon on the Mount. I'd never understood the whole implications of Sermon on the Mount and what each principle meant. I knew none of that. I'm a Catholic. As Catholics, we're told that when we're born as babies and we're baptized with water, we're guaranteed our place in heaven. We don't have to go to church. We don't do any more. Because we were baptized as babies, our place in heaven is assured. We're going to die and we're going to meet St. Peter. And he say, you're a Catholic, come on in. And that's what we all believe. All Catholics believe that. It's frightening. So meeting Protestant ministers and learning that, no, that's not good enough. You've got to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior and embrace Christ. And, I was shocked. I thought, oh my God, my parents, my grandparents, they're all dead now. God help me. They probably haven't gotten in, thinking that the bit of water splashing their head as a child was enough. That kind of shocked the system. But I felt that I wanted to make a difference in the world, and I wanted to know a better understanding of God. I was introduced to God through the 12-step program, and what little bit I learned of God was phenomenal, because I believe that I experienced my first miracle in AA when my desire to drink stopped. I believe that was a miracle. I couldn't put anything else, because all my best efforts on my own to stop drinking didn't work. All my best efforts to stop self-harming and trying to commit suicide didn't work. But something happened to me where all that went from me, and I was at peace. So that was a miracle for me. And then getting peace of mind, no nightmares. That was a miracle. So I started experiencing miracles, and that kind of led me to wanting to commit more to God.
Powerful. So how did you come up with these 12 steps? Is it because you went through that trauma yourself and okay?
Well, yeah, yes and no. I suffered a trauma as a child, and this chap who was my mentor gave me the Emmett Fox book, The Sermon on the Mount. It was he challenged me one day. He said, "Isn't it time you let that go? Isn't it time you forgave your abusers and you let that go and you got on with your life?" And I was shocked. I was thinking, how dare you suggest that? I'm a victim. How dare you say I should let it go and move on with my life? I mean, how dare you, or whatever. But it was the first man I would allow to get close to me in my lifetime. After the abuse, I wasn't very good around men and letting men get close. And it's the first man I allowed to have a personal relationship with me and teach me and be my mentor and whatever. And I didn't want to fire him as my sponsor. So I kind of looked at what he was saying. Then I came to realize that I was a 51-year-old man, and it was a 12-year-old child who was abused, not 12 years of age. And I'm not 51 30 years ago. I'm 51 today and today alone. So it didn't happen to this 51-year-old man. And that was the real kind of turning point when I realized what happened in the past didn't happen to the person I am today. That was a huge breakthrough for me. And kind of, I think it goes against the Christian faith, but it worked for me where I understood that I'm a different aspect of Richard. So the person I am today is not the person I was yesterday, because I'm 24 hours older and wiser today. So yesterday I was excited about coming on your podcast. Today I'm on your podcast. Two different versions of the same person.
That's right.
When I could see that a 12-year-old child, 35, now it's 50 years ago, a 12-year-old child back then suffered the trauma. But that 12-year-old child lived in Ireland with his parents, in his family home, with his 5 siblings. Me today, my parents are dead, my grandparents are dead, one of my siblings died of leukemia, the family home is sold, I'm living in Thailand. So we're not the same person. So I can't be going around saying I was abused when I was 12, because this 64-year-old man was never 12 years of age. I can only be 64 years of age. So that was my awakening moment of, aha, it isn't me. I can't be saying this happened to me because I only exist in these 24 hours. And then the idea was, this Protestant minister said to me, how about at nighttime you give God your 8 hours of night sleep? You go and you say to him, okay, God, here's all of my past, and today I'm giving it all to you. Give me in exchange 8 hours of peaceful sleep. And that was my next miracle. I did this practice where I said, okay, God, this is all of my past, all of my memories of the past and trauma from the past and all my fears of the unknown future and my resentments against X, Y, and Z and the people that irk me and the whatever it is, and living in Thailand and the two-price system they have here. Thais pay one price and Westerners pay more, and it's like crazy stuff you have to live with. And all this kind of stuff. I say, take it from me so I can have a peaceful night's sleep. And I saw myself giving this to God. I went to bed, no nightmares, no flashbacks, great peaceful sleep. I'm kind of going, I can do this. I can give God my day at night and get 8 hours of sleep. And then only have to live a 16-hour day. And that was my next kind of spiritual awakening moment to the power of God, that I could give God my 8 hours of sleep and I only have to deal with 16 hours in the day. And then I realized, if I can give him 8 hours at nighttime, I can ask him for 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there or 30 minutes here or an hour there. And suddenly my life changed, because I was inviting God into my life in every moment of every day. So if I'm coming on a podcast like I do tonight, I'd say, okay, God, I'm coming on a podcast tonight. Please make sure I speak slowly and I carry a message of hope to the audience. And suddenly I'm here and I feel like I'm speaking slowly. I speak very fast normally. So I think I'm speaking slowly and I think I'm offering some hope. And the host is smiling her head off. So I think I must be saying something right. And I know God has directed me to deliver myself in this way, that maybe someone in the audience is gaining hope from what I'm saying. And that's how it works. So in any event I'm doing, whether it's coming on a podcast, I don't go dates anymore, I'm now married, but if I'm going to meet somebody or for an interview or whatever, I ask God to prepare me, to take my crap off me so I can focus on being present. And he just does it. It's like I'm performing miracles all day, every day. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you not have God in your life when you can ask God for a miracle of peace of mind for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes or for 15 minutes or, this kind of stuff. So, yeah. So,
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I have a question, because you said something that really piqued my interest. You said children have this God-given instinct, right? And you said that when they experience anxiety or fear, that they should lean into it and understand what it is. But how do you, as a parent, I'm speaking as a parent because I'm a parent,
I'm a
how
parent too, yeah.
do you determine, like, whether it's the trauma that is causing the anxiety, or it's just something that the Lord has given them to pay attention and to lean in? Like, how do you separate the two, or is there a separation? All right, before we dive back in, I want to pause for just a moment and speak to the author in you. That book on your heart isn't just an idea, it's an assignment. God didn't give you that story, that message, that testimony for it to stay locked inside of you. Someone is waiting for your obedience and your words. I'm here to walk with you step by step to bring it from vision to published reality. So don't wait for the perfect time, because the time is now. Let's be obedient together. Visit the oneandomlypublishing.com and let's write your book. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Well, what I try to convey to children is that they're God-given instincts. So you may have trauma in your life, you may have bullying, you may have teasing going on in your life, but God has given you these instincts, and they're your feelings and emotions, and you're to trust them, no matter whether it's a trauma or it's teasing or it's your parents gave out to you and you're frustrated or you're angry or whatever. You trust your feelings. Now, as long as you don't harm yourself or another, you can't make a wrong decision. So again, what I suggest to parents when I work with parents is that they sit down with the children. They go, okay, let's get a sheet of paper, okay, and let's work out the responses to danger are fight, flight, freeze. They're the three primary ones, okay. So on their fight, let's think of all the ways we can fight when we're scared. And I'm not talking about having a fight and fisticuffs. But I'm talking about you can ask someone to hold your hand or sit with you until the danger passes. So you write that down on the note, and you get your kids to think of something like, or tell your teacher, okay, write that down. Okay, tell your parents, write that down. No secrets. So you have this game with your children where you start putting down a list of all the ways that you can fight something. Send an email, call the police, tell your spiritual advisor, tell an adult, tell your teacher, tell your best friend, scream and shout out loud, drawing attention to yourself. Bullies don't like attention being drawn. So if you scream and shout out loud, the bully will go away. And someone will come over and say, what's going on here? And you can say, Mimi's bullying me. And then someone can come in. But if you keep quiet, it continues. So you teach your children, okay, we have these 10 responses for fight. Which one do you like the best? And they all say, I like to run away down to the village to get an ice cream. Okay, let's all leave the house for 10 minutes. We're going to go down the road and have an ice cream. We'll come back after and we'll talk about how do we feel now. So you all go down the road with your kids, and you go and you have an ice cream or something, and you come back after. How do you feel? I feel great. Okay, well, now you've taught them to actually practice something. Now, again, too many ice creams, they're going to get overweight. So maybe it's a bottle, or maybe it's not an ice cream. Maybe just go down to the waterfront and throw stones in the water or climb trees. But to get out of that environment, you teach them to do something. And they actually have the learned experience of doing something as an expression of fight. And maybe for 1 week, all you do is just teach them all the different ways to fight.
Mm.
Okay? And then the following week, you go to flight. Okay, let's go to flight. What's flight? Well, run up to your bedroom, hide under the bed, hide in the closet, hide in the bed, go for a sleep. Go out into the garden, hide up a tree, hide in a bush, hide in the garage, hide in the bathroom, run to your granny's house, run to your best friend's house, run out of your classroom, leave the classroom, leave the house. If your mommy and daddy are fighting, get up and walk away. Just leave the house and go outside. Go to your friend's house, your grandparents' house, run away. And get the kids again to write on a sheet of paper all the different ways to flight. And you do this with them all the different ways to flight. And then you practice some of these ways of flight. And you instill in your children practices of fight, flight, and then you go to freeze. And freeze is the big one. So when I grew up in my family home, my family were all fight. They were outgoing, social animals, success orientated. But I was freeze. I was nervous, apprehensive. I was introverted. I was socially anxious. I didn't suffer fool's gladly. I didn't like being around people. I wasn't social at all. And I tried to be like my family, to fit in, and it nearly destroyed me. And then one day I realized, you're going to allow yourself to be you. And so when they're all going out somewhere, I say, no, I'll stay at home. Or I'd arrive, everyone would go in, I'd step in, then step out and walk away. And of course, the party go on without me, and it would all be fine. And I'd go out and sit in the car till we're going home. And my parents learned that I wasn't comfortable going to these things, and they'd leave me sit in the car, and they'd go out and they'd get me a bag of crisps and a minute, and leave me in the car with my bag of crisps in a minute while they're inside having the social. And they learned to understand that I didn't do socials well. So we teach our children, if their response is to freeze, it's okay to freeze. So the freeze is the big one. Disassociating is not a disorder. Disassociating is a healthy response for a child especially. So if a child's in a home and the parents are fighting, the safest thing maybe the child is too small to run outside and too small to defend itself. So it just shuts down mentally and emotionally. And it goes into like a freeze, and it just leaves the room mentally and emotionally, and disassociates from the whole event until the shouting stops and mommy and daddy stop fighting. And then when the fighting's all over, they come back into themselves. And it's a healthy response for a child. It may not be a healthy response for an adult, but for a child, it's a healthy response. Again, shutting down mentally and emotionally, disassociating, withdrawing, isolating, being introverted. What else? Going to bed, having a sleep, having a nap. The child goes and hides in bed and has a sleep. If that protects them from the danger of what's happening downstairs, to go and have a sleep somewhere, or hide, curl up in a ball somewhere, or hide, they do that. And if we can teach our children to do that, then they have these responses. Now, the fourth one is faith. Back in the days of Vikings, the tribe would break into 4 groups, and everyone knew their role, and their role was okay and accepted by the village. So, if you were a fighter, you picked up men and women. You'd pick up arms, and you'd go to the walls to defend the village against the Vikings. Those who could run away would take the children and the property and the old people and their goods, and they'd go off and they hide in the hills. Those who were terror-stricken, or they're old, the infirm, they would hide in plain sight. They would freeze, and they would hide under the floorboards in the haystack and the pigsty in plain sight, and they'd be very, very quiet and very still in the hope they wouldn't be noticed. And then the fourth group were those who would go to the chapel and they'd pray to God for deliverance. Everybody had a specific role to play. It was perfectly out. You weren't called a coward if you froze or fled, or you went to the chapel because you didn't fight. If you're a man and you didn't fight, you weren't a coward. You were doing your job to protect the preservation of the village. But because nowadays we don't have any Vikings or any saber-tooth tigers, we tease people if they flight or they freeze. So we have to teach children it's okay if your response is to flight or to freeze. So if we can teach them some ways of fighting and teach them the power of faith, that trust in God, ask the Holy Spirit to come in and protect you and keep you safe. This kind of stuff, we can teach children to pray, to believe in God and to pray, and also ways of fighting, like standing up for yourself, or screaming and shouting and crying and drawing attention, or having a good cry, or throwing a tantrum. Anything to get rid of the demons, you allow your child to do. So that's the idea behind it. I wanted to teach children that it's okay to trust your feelings because they're God-given. So whether there's trauma in your past or whether there's something on you in your life, that doesn't come into it. If you have a feeling of anxiety and your body's telling you to run away, run away. If it's telling you to hide in the closet, hide in the closet. If it's telling you to hide under the bed, hide under the bed. It's only going to be for 5 or 10 minutes, and you feel safe, and you'll come out of your hiding place. But we have to tell children to trust your feelings.
I love that, and I'm just trying to. First of all, thank you for sharing that. That was very interesting. To be honest with you, very, very interesting. I love that you're teaching children to lean into who they are and what they're feeling and allow themselves to be themselves. Is there ever a point where those things become unhealthy, though?
Well, certainly, but my response was freeze. Okay, and even at the age of 27, I remember I'd come out of my addiction, and I wasn't in a good place. In my first 5 years, I wasn't doing the program which I meant to do. I was blaming the whole world. If the whole world would change, I'd be okay. I wasn't drinking, but I was what they call a dry drunk. I was a raving lunatic. I was hoping everyone else would change and I wouldn't have to change. And everyone's saying to me, no, you have to change. And I was really angry with the whole world and whatever. And I've been through a treatment center and doing all this aftercare. And I was an angry motherfucker, excuse my language. God, I haven't got rid of all my bad language, I'm afraid. I'm not a pure Christian yet. I've still got some bad habits. But I remember on my day off, I'm sitting at home, chain smoking, watching some John Wayne movie because I was a very scared. I'm 120 kilos. I'm 6'6", and yet I was like a. What I used to think was I'm a big girl because I'm not a man. I'm not like I'm John Wayne kind of stuff. And I realized it's okay to be not John Wayne rather than saying what okay to be a big girl. It's okay to be flight or freeze. It's perfect. That's who I am. I have to accept who I am. So I'm sitting at home. My family came over to an intervention. I didn't see them until the last minute. So I'm sitting on the couch, chain smoking, watching John Wayne movie on the TV. My family come up, they knock on the window and say, Richard, come in to talk to you. And I was shocked that if I'd seen them coming, I would have hidden. But they've looked through the net curtain. They can see me sitting on the couch, chain smoking, like in John Wayne. I just automatically get up off the couch, pull the couch out from the wall. The cigarette's still burning in the ashtray. My family can see me. I crawl in behind the couch, hand over the head between my legs, rocking back and forward, humming to myself, and I disassociate. They're looking at this crazy behavior of their son and their brother, doing this, rocking, 27 years of age, 6'6", 120 kilos, big man, and they're thinking, we can't go in. Maybe if we go in, it'll put him over the edge. We better leave. And all I'm wanting for them is them to go. I'm going to go, and please go away, please go away, please go away. In my head, I'm disassociating and getting out. And so I do this thing I'm not even aware I'm doing it. And I do this thing, and then after I hear the car drive away, I stop, I come out afterwards, they're gone. I push the couch back, sit back down, take up my cigarette, and continue watching John Wayne. Absolutely loop-the-loop crazy. Like, who's this crazy guy? But in that moment, it kept me safe. Now, was it crazy? Was it insane? Was it loop-the-loop? It was. But it kept me sane. And if I hadn't done that, I don't know what I would have done. Maybe I would have harmed myself, or I would have, that kept me sane. I'm not saying so. But I learned in that moment, as much as that kept me safe in that moment, that can't be my go-to. If that's my go-to all the time, I'd be locked up. And you know yourself, you'd be locking me up today if that was the case. So I had to learn ways to flight, because all I did was freeze. All I ever did was disassociate, introvert, socially anxious, not go out, not interact with people. And I had to learn all those ideas of, okay, how can you flight? Okay, these are all different ways. I'll try that next time. Okay, this is fight. Okay, I'll try that next time. So a big one I loved was journaling and writing. And that was the biggest fight one I learned, for me, was the best tool. I'd go sit down at a desk and I'd write to myself. I learned this wonderful practice where with your dominant hand, so your left-handed, I write down to my inner child, that 12-year-old child within me. I go, dear little Richie. And I write this letter to him about how scared I am, blah, blah, whatever. And then love, big Richie. And then I turn over the page and I get my non-dominant hand, I write down. So because of my non-dominant hand, it's like a child's writing or an old person's writing, because it's not my normal writing. And I put down, dear big Richie, love little Richie. And because it's my non-dominant hand, it activates my subconscious mind. So the memory of that 12-year-old child is writing to me. It's not me. I'm not in control of what I write. It's the most amazing experience. I have to tell you, if you've lost somebody and you want to talk to that person, again, it's very hard to say this to Christians because we're not meant to converse with the dead. But if I want to have a fight with talking to God, I'll write to God, and then I'll write back with my dominant hand from God to me, Richard, love God. He'll tell me a note in certain terms, get your act together, because it's not coming from me, it's coming from my knowledge of God, and God speaks to me. It's when you do it, it's mind-blowing what happens when you write with your non-dominant hand back to yourself. It's not you talking to yourself. It's somebody else. It's the most beautiful experience. So I'd have my younger self saying to me, that's my crap you're messing with. I want it back. Go off and have your life today. I write to God and give out about my mother dying of leukemia and my father dying of this and me. I've been an adult child. And he says to me, it's time to go up. He just challenged me. Richard, it's time to go up now. You're a grown man now. So one day at a time. Just don't block me out. We'll do this together. This kind of conversation you have with God. And it's like, I love this book, you see, Conversation with God. I read one time. I really liked it. I always felt I'd like to have the conversation myself with God. So I write with my left hand to God, and then my right hand is my non-dominant hand, God writes back to me, and it's mind-blowing when you do the exercise. So I did it. I had anger towards my parents who died. So I did it with my mother. I did it with my father. I did it with my younger brother died. I did it with God. It's a wonderful way of getting a different perspective. For me, it worked wonders. So again, it's not something that we promote in Christian faith, because I'm going to talk to the dead, but it helped me an awful lot to get a different perspective.
Wow, that is very interesting. I love to journal. And I always tell people to journal, and I never heard anyone suggest using your non-dominant hand. And I'm going to do this as soon as I get off this podcast with you, Richard. You think I'm joking? I am. I'm gonna
No,
do
I
it.
get it, but I've done that with like 20 different aspects of me. I've done it with the 12-year-old child. I've done it with a 19-year-old version of me who suffered a terrible rejection of a girl one time, and it was so bad that I remember keeping sending flowers to this girl. I was looking for someone to fix me or save me, or maybe take a hostage, as they say. And eventually, I got this thing: if you don't leave me alone, I'm gonna have a barring order put on you. And I'm thinking I'm madly in love with this girl, and she's kind of going, "Who's this loop de loop? Get away from me!" No, I wasn't a healthy. But I wrote to that fella saying, and he said to me, "I was crazy back then. You're not me. Don't behave like that around women." So this kind of stuff, I'd have these conversations, and they'd be wonderful for me to realize I've got to change. I can't be the old me, because the old me was broken. I've got to change, and I've got to make sure God's in my life every single day. I can't go without God in my life. When God isn't in my life, I'm back to my crazy antics of hiding behind the couch and sending a dozen flowers to a girl who doesn't want, and this kind of crazy behavior. So yeah, so what throws me finding God now is how other people don't know this, that God is so important. It shocks me that there's so many people out there who have no idea that God is so easily available to each of us.
Thank you for sharing that. I would love for you, if there was someone listening today, um, and they are a grown adult, and they have dealt with a lot of trauma, and their soul is stuck in that time where that trauma occurred. What would be something that you would say to them today at this moment? How would you impact them to want to change? And I know you may not be able to sum it into one sentence, but give us something that you would want them to know today.
Well, okay, we have to seek a spiritual solution. I hope I have a few more minutes than 1 minute, because you need to
Yeah.
understand that um, if you go to a doctor and you've got a sore leg, okay, and let's say you've got a sore leg all week long, your leg is very, very sore, and you get a plan to see a doctor. And the day you go to see a doctor, your leg isn't sore. You don't go into the doctor and say, "No, my leg's fine, thank you very much," and leave. You tell him how bad the leg can be, so he knows how bad it can be for you. And same with a past trauma. We don't actually, I don't believe anyone has a mental disorder from a past trauma. I believe they have bouts of depression, bouts of anxiety. So we go to the therapist and we say, yeah, on a bad day I can have nightmares, I can have flashbacks, and I can be depressed, I can be very angry, I can be bipolar, and I can be anxious, and I can be stressed. And the therapists take all this, they bunch it all together and say, yes, you've got PTSD, or you've got bipolar or something. But they are diagnosing your coping skills, how you cope with the past. They're not treating the past. To treat the past, we have it's in the past. It's dead. It's no longer in this life. So we have to treat it with a spiritual solution, and the spiritual solution has to be God. We have to find a way of giving the past event back to its rightful owner, to our younger self, and do that where we see our younger self standing surrounded by a host of God angels. The power of Christ is with him, and he's looking at you saying, "Give me back my crap so I can step into heaven. I can't leave without all my baggage, and I want to step into the light. Let me go home to our Father." And you make a decision to give it back. And that's basically the process I take people through. It takes 2 hours, and it's a lot of holistic practices of tapping and acupressure, where you're releasing the energy from your body, and then you visualize yourself giving this baggage to your younger self. You see them stepping into the light and going to heaven, and that moment you're free of it completely. And then when your therapist asks you about the past, you say, yeah, no, what happened to young Richard was terrible, and I feel sorry for him, but it didn't happen to me. But until we actually give it back to our younger self and they take it out of this plane of existence, we feel as though it happened to us. And we're tied into that. So we have to do this process where we give it back to our younger self. And I have this program where I teach people how to do that. I have an email address information at traumarecoveryanonymous.com. And you can contact me, and we'll have a half an hour chat on Zoom or one of these platforms which are free. A half an hour chat and explain how it works, because it takes a bit more. It takes about half an hour to explain to you how it works, and I can chat to you how it works. You can bring along a companion, a support. If there's more than one of you, I can work with more than one at a time. And the practice takes 2 hours to complete the healing event. And once that's done, you unlearn the dysfunctional behavior of the disorder. But it takes 3 hours in total, and it's gone. So if you think you've had trauma for 10, 20, 30 years, and this fucking Irish Each is telling you can be free in 3 hours, you can by claiming your miracle. It's not me doing it for you. You're going to talk to God, claim your miracle, and give your past back to your younger self and be free today. It's all about you. I did it for me. Anyone I've worked with, they did it for them. I can teach you how to do it for you, but you're doing it for you.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. That is very interesting and very exciting. And for those of you guys that have or are going through trauma, definitely reach out to Richard. You could tell from your passion. You could tell from I could see it in your face. I feel it. And personally, it's something that everyone has experienced. I don't think there's a single person that hasn't had at least even a semblance of trauma in their life. So this is well needed in the world. So thank you so much, Richard. It was such a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you. I pray that everyone that has been listening has been blessed by this. And always, always remember, obedience is the true measure of success, and your life is proof